And I stand right.
Hey, welcome back. It's Dan MacDonald, and you're listening to Here and Now. We have a guest in the studio who I first heard of years ago, and I can't even believe how long it's been, actually. Mike Kaycock dropped off a CD on my desk with a note on it that said, Dan, sorry we missed you. Check this CD out. The artist wanted to meet you, and the album I listened to was called The World You Know. The songs were very honest, very confessional, but they walked that fine line where while he was telling his own story, you could easily apply the songs to your own story, and that's the connection. Fast forward 9 years later, he just released his second record a few months back. It's incredible. Musical evolution. It really plays out like a sequel in so many ways to the first record. Snapshots in time of where an artist is and was and where they're going. And joining me in the studio to talk music and give a listen to a few songs from the new record, finally, is Mike Cerveni. How's it going?
Hey, good, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in, and I'm sorry it's been so long. I'm like scatterbrained sometimes. So it's good to have you finally sitting here. Congrats on the record.
Thanks.
It's wonderful. It's been 9 years since your first album. Am I hallucinating, or is that the gap?
A very long time, and I don't want to think about it. The years go by so fast, I don't even know how. But yeah.
Now, for listeners who do not know you, I know you've been playing for a long time. You started playing guitar at the age of 11, started writing songs at 16, and I know you have a massive amount of songs. I heard an interview you did in Serbia, and you had like a stockpile of songs, hundreds and hundreds of songs, and that was years ago.
You saw that, eh? That video.
I did see that video, yeah. And now, that hundreds of songs, what was it about these songs and this point in your life that felt like the right time to release your second record?
Well, firstly, it's been a while, so I didn't want to keep waiting. Yeah. But secondly, it just all the songs that I felt that I've written since the first album and over the years. It's just I wanted 10 tracks on the next album that I knew that. So it got to a point where I was thinking, I think I'm ready. But it was not until like December, January 2017, right into 2018, where I went to Germany to visit a relative of mine who's also a musician, and he visited us in Canada here before that. He came to me with the song idea, which the song is called Forever, on the new album, and he came to me with that idea, just some guitar chords. And anyway, it was just one of those songs that was more upbeat and just that rock song that I think was lacking on the new record that I wanted.
Right.
And so we worked on it together, and then that's when I knew that it was ready to really finalize stuff.
That was kind of the focal point that brought it all together, kind of thing. Now, did you collaborate a little bit more this time around than you did the first record?
I'm trying to think. Not really with other musicians with songwriting.
Right.
There may have been one or two people. Actually, there was another drummer, Taylor Eunice is his name. He was on one of the tracks as a drummer, but with nobody songwriting with me.
Right.
Or anything like that. Yeah.
Now, it's really interesting as well because your first record, The World You Know, dealt with relationships and lots of loss as well. But at the same time, how I interpret it, they were kind of finding a shred of light or hope in those really dark times.
Yeah.
And I recall you had a video for a song on the first record, Right Now, and it depicted a homeless man with a sign, "We'll save the world for food." And it was clearly shot by the parking lot in Pallissier. It was really cool to see kind of local markers. But when you watch the video now, today, years later, it's interesting. You were almost given a glimpse into the future a wee little bit. Homelessness, mental health, looking away if it doesn't affect me, I don't care, that whole thing, which has become a bit more prominent today downtown. Have these always been important issues to you?
It has. And I mean, I've obviously focused, there's so many, it's a broad range, right, of how you're explaining it, and I focused it at the time with what the song was about specifically, for Right Now and that music video. But we did make it, Gavin Booth was the filmmaker on that video, and so it was pretty much his idea to try to do it that way where it tells the story of the lyrics and the song, but also it shows it in a different way so people can relate to it to their own, I guess.
Right.
And which is always good to have, because then people, you don't have to relate to it in one specific issue. And but yeah, that's what we decided to do. But it is important now. I mean, and even back then, so Right Now is a song about my mom, who was battling cancer at that time, and years ago. And it is, like you said, it has that sense of hope, right? And most of the tracks do on the first album, but it tells a story about those things. And I think we do that, though, with many situations, and even you don't want to think about a certain situation,
Right.
but you are positive at the same time, even though it's not a positive thing, if that makes any sense.
No, it totally does.
So, that can be related to many things, even homelessness. And, you don't want to look at these people sometimes. You just kind of pass them by. But, maybe you should,
Right.
help them or do give them change or whatever. But we all think about it in different ways.
And that brings us to a song from the new album, What Would You Do? A song that is actually really hard-hitting. Tell us a little bit about this one, What Would You Do?
So this is interesting, and I haven't had the opportunity to describe how this song came about many times, but I'll say it to you. I wrote it, I believe, in 2009. I did not have it on the first album, but I did write it in 2009 after watching a show called What Would You Do?
Right, I know the
If you've
show
seen-
where they set up scenarios and see if the people react or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I loved it. But there was a specific episode where I watched it, and it's in the lyrics of the song, but if I remember correctly, there was a homeless person getting beat, and on this episode,
Okay.
obviously it was
Staged,
acting and
yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
but people really just walked by, didn't help, didn't want to put themselves, whether it was a risk or they just felt like they couldn't do anything, until one or two people did much later as the situation was still happening. And just other situations too, and it just really inspired me from that show, literally, to write just that, the song, and but then also tie into domestic violence a little bit. I don't know how that ended up. Actually, it probably was in the episode a little bit,
Right.
and so I just tied it in all together, and it just became what it is now.
Mike Cerveni with What Would You Do from his latest album, self-titled record, and the song asked the same questions I ask myself quite often. Mike Cerveni in the studio right now. Now, I live in a constant state of what would you do if. I always am playing out those scenarios in my head, and I think we're faced with homelessness, mental health, even something as simple as making eye contact with someone who is not in a good situation. Do you or don't you? It's sad, but it's kind of where we are right now, isn't it? In a lot of ways. We're dealing with this every single day.
100%.
In a way. So the song is extra hard hitting. Have you ever been in that situation where you weren't sure, should you intervene or keep walking? Have you had that?
I'm sure we all have. I have. I can't think of at this moment right now, to be honest. But, we always just regret it, I guess.
Always,
you
yeah.
know.
I've walked by situations before myself, and that's what I thought of when I was listening to your song. It's like, it's really not responsible to do that at all.
Yeah.
The new album, heavy with emotion, as it always is, your music. You got married. You have some gems on there. Very Ed Sheeran of you, a few of these songs. Like some of them could be wedding theme songs or first dance songs, like I Do. Everyone out there, if you're getting married, I Do is a phenomenal song. I hope it's okay. I'm inviting people to
100%.
to use your song.
Let's do it.
But that's one that stands out right away, which I take it is about your current relationship. You got married. When did you get married?
February 3rd, 2013, all the way in Europe, in Serbia. Yeah, so I met my wife, Melanie, there, just on a family vacation, randomly, and it happened very fast. Like 6 months later, when I met her in the summer, 6 months later, come February, that's when we got married.
So this is, you got married after your first record came out?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't it so funny, too, how relationships affect your life? I mean, from the heartache standpoint, when we're angst-ridden teens, we're writing about relationships, to when we grow up, we get into more long-term relationships, or we get married. Has married life affected your writing, stabilized it, inspired it in any way?
Probably all those things, right?
Yeah.
So there's always, and I've heard other artists talk about this too, there's always something to write about when you're sad, or when you're, sad moments, even relationships and stuff like that. When they're just like, relationship after relationship, stuff like that, it's easy to write. But then once, you're in a stable, healthy relationship, you find you'll get inspired, but then there's only so much that you can write about. Then I found other inspirations that I'm able to write about too, and maybe other situations or stories that are not about me on this new record as well.
Right.
And so that's something, as a songwriter, you grow as well into doing that, and that's always a plus. But definitely, there, like you said, I Do is a wedding song that I wrote. It was a surprise to my wife before we got married. I was just,
wow.
I showed her. But I went to the studio first and recorded it, and then I showed her, and she loved it. So.
Oh, well, how could you not? That's an incredible wedding gift.
And then,
That's amazing.
Yeah, right? I thought that was a good plan.
I hope I know she's in the studio right now being very quiet, but I'm sure she loved it. I can't imagine not loving a song like that. That's incredible. Did you play it at the wedding?
I did, yeah.
Oh, were people crying their eyes out?
Probably. I'm just thinking we actually had two weddings. We had a little one in February, but then in the summer, a few months after, we had a bigger reception and stuff over there again. So I did play it there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful song, and it really stood out to me. The new record, definitely a romantic flair to it, and it's interesting because you have a rockin' romantic song called Forever. I watched the video, too. Tell me about this song, recorded in a few different countries. Who played on it, and what inspired this one?
Yeah, so my relative, it's actually my dad's cousin. He's a little older than me, and he just visited Canada for the first time a couple years ago, and he came to me with a song idea, just 4 chords, and right away him and I connected with the chords, and I made up the melody and the words, just the chorus at that time. And then I flew to visit him later on, and we booked studio session time for this purpose, even though we're just, I'm there to visit, but hoping we could finish the song. So what had happened was, on the plane and then on the couch at his place and even at the studio, sitting there, I remember he's tracking the guitar, and we have the whole song laid out, but I didn't have the verses done yet, really, for the song, lyrically. Right. And so I was sitting there with a migraine. For whatever reason, I woke up with a headache, and I finished the song right then and there. And then we took that and that whole recording, and we brought it back to Windsor, at SLR Studios to finish the track here, and it ended up on the album. But yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Now, when you said you finished the song right then and there in the studio before you recorded it, is that stress, or do you work better?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Do you work well under that kind of situation?
I guess I did and had to. Obviously I wouldn't like to do that ever again. Right. I mean, it was more so that I had a migraine or a crazy headache. And so trying to think, obviously, maybe you've had them, right? So it's just hard to do anything. But I knew I had to do it, and we had time, we're paying for this time there. So, but yeah, it ended up just fine.
It looks great.
No regret, yeah.
It looks fantastic. The video is awesome, too. I love the behind-the-scenes videos you're posting. Let's give it a listen right now. A rockin' romantic song. This is Mike Cerveni with Forever on Here and Now. Mike Cerveni with Forever. Mike Cerveni actually joining me in the studio today. Now, that song is from the new album, which came out back in March, and the track was recorded in Germany and in Canada. It's a rock song, but it's a romantic song, but it sounds great. The production of the new album, by the way, I know last I heard on your Facebook, you were putting a band together. Is that a difficult process? How is that coming along, putting a band together to do some live gigs?
So I have the guys. I have the bandmates, some friends that I know as well, and they're great musicians. The only difficult thing is figuring out everyone's schedules, right, and going from there. But this month we're gonna get together and really just. They haven't heard all the songs on the album, so what we're going to do is I'm going to practice this month with them, or at least get some practices in, and just get this really just solid band practices so we can go forward and do some shows locally here. And I don't want to do solo gigs as much as I did for the first album. Right. It really doesn't justify not justify. What's the word I'm looking for?
Do justice
to the songs. Yeah,
these do sound like band songs more so than the first record.
And you could do acoustic sets with it, but I really want to show the people that don't know my music and the new music specifically, to really show them how it's supposed to sound.
I think the songs do deserve a live band, for sure. They sound like that. A note to listeners, too, about this record. I think it's very important to point out such a big influence on your first record with songs like A Miracle and Right Now Is Your Mother and her battle with cancer. And I know this Mother's Day, you made a beautiful post on Facebook about the song Without You, which is about your mom. But I think anyone who's gone through the loss of someone they were close with can see and hear themselves in that song. It's part of what makes your music on this record so great. That's got to be cathartic, though, for you to write and release a song like that.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, these are older songs, so I'm used to just the idea of having the song and just, it's not like something I wrote like brand new. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm used to having these songs. So when I'm playing it for people or listening to it or having people listen to it, it's okay. Like it's just more of it keeps the memory alive,
right,
for my mother, I guess what I'm trying to say. And there's always songs that, there's even new ones that I've written that are just the ideas more about that topic, about my mother and everything that we went through, and that she went through. But specifically for Without You, I released it for Mother's Day, and there's so many people that can relate to this, and yeah.
Oh, it's a very touching song. It's beautiful because it's so honest. And just a personal reflection, your songs always seem to have that balance of light and dark. Even the romantic one, like a song like I Do, it's kind of a here we are getting married song, but behind it you can hear the couple in that song has been through a lot together, and acknowledging that, it really makes it that much more powerful. It's a really cool balance you've always had in your writing.
Yeah, it's even I have this new song. It's on the new record. It's called Everything's for You, and every time my son Liam, he's 2 years old, so he loves listening to his own song. He knows that it's his song. He just sings it, and not everything. Obviously, he's 2, but he recognizes it. But what's funny is it's not like even though it's about him, it's not like a kid song kind of upbeat, right? So it's very dramatic. I say dramatic, but yeah, you had better words, I think.
No, I know what you mean. It's not a kid song, but it's for him, about him.
Yeah, it's about him lyrically, but it has that mood to it, that sound to it, that I always create it that way, right?
Right.
So,
and it's parenthood. I was going to ask you about that. You're a dad now. You have a child, and he's 2, you said?
He's 2 in a few months.
Now, how has parenthood changed your creative process? Because that has to make an impact.
We're just busy.
Right.
I just got to say, I'm super busy, with Liam, with the family, and with other work that I do as well. And it's very time consuming, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
No. Now, does that give you a new perspective on things too, looking at the world through a 2-year-old's eyes?
It does. Everything is just amazing to him. So he doesn't know anything, right? And so anything that he sees, it's just we're there to teach him everything, really. And it's intense, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of scary at times, because you got to make sure you're doing the right thing, even though we're learning as we go.
Right. Well, it's a beautiful record, and he sings on this. He's on this album, is he not?
Yeah,
he is on this record. I'm like, that's got to be.
You know what, Liam? Yes, he is. And how old was he, Melanie? 2 months old. 2 months old.
And he's on this record. Do you think you'll have a future in music?
I hope so. We'll see. He loves music, though. We have instruments and stuff for him, so he loves playing with them. But when you say he's on the record, so what you're talking about, Dan, right? So the listeners can know what you mean. He's laughing on the in the intro and outro of Everything's for You.
Yes, he's not playing rhythm guitar or anything yet, but no, he definitely made a cameo. Mighty guitars in this song too, though. I love the behind the scenes video you're posting. Really fascinating to watch how his song is built and then hear it on the album. I love those videos.
There's so much footage, Dan. Most of the tracks on the record during the studio sessions at SLR Studios, I record the whole thing. So if I'm there 5 hours, it's usually about 5 hours long.
Wow.
So obviously there's a lot of behind the scenes footage. I've been posting a little bit here and there, but there's so much content I can work with and show people.
It's really, really fascinating to watch. Well, Mike Cerveni, congrats on the new record. Look him up on Facebook, Mike Cerveni Music, also MikeCerveniMusic.com. And Mike, thanks for finally stopping by.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm really
appreciate it.
And congrats on the record. It's wonderful. I'll post the links to your page, where to get it and to stream it and all that. And I'm so sorry it took so long to get you on this show.
It's okay. We made it.
You made it. Let's end with the song we've been talking about your little one, Liam. Listen for the little cameo. For all the parents out there too, Mike Cerveni, this is Everything's for You on Here and Now. Cool. That was a great interview.
Thanks.
When I think of my life, I can't imagine it without you. You bring joy, a new high, and it's all because of you. Everything's for you, yeah. Everything's for you, oh. Everything's for you, yeah. Everything's for you, oh. When you're in